about routing, we essentially refer to navigation, yeah, which is the most fundamental part, one of the most fundamental parts of any web application. I'm not just talking about the web. Yeah? Even if you create a native app, you will click on buttons, you will touch the screen, you will redirect the user. This is routing. Yeah? And the immense majority of the modern web applications are URL based or URL driven. That means when you land on /contact, they display something. When you land on /projects, then you will see different content. Yeah? So the URL will decide the content that the user will receive, which is pretty natural. That's some sort of a standard, because it's then very easy to share a given content with someone else on the email, all these things, right? So that's what I would like to talk about today. And it's interesting because, first of all, React has really good support for routing. On top of that, by the first time, we're going to learn how to install a package. So routing is not part of React anymore. Yeah? By default, you cannot perform routing. You need to install a package. So let's learn how to install a package. First things first, you need to start at the terminal. Yeah? Well, the same thing you do when you go to npm start. The thing is, as you probably noticed already, if that's your terminal, if you're running the server, can I type, you cannot see the bottom of my screen, but can you type anything in the terminal? No, yeah, the terminal is busy. If you are running a server, don't touch it, leave it. You have to open a new terminal. You see the plus icon? If you click here, then you got multiple terminals running in parallel. Actually, I got too many. So you can also kill the unnecessary terminals clicking on the bin icon. Yeah? All right, so I got two terminals, one with my server, which is busy, not listening to any instructions, and a clean one where I can type my mic. So, how do we install a new package? Regardless of whether you use React, Vue, Angular, when talking about JavaScript, the process, thankfully, after many years of different approaches, now it looks like there is a standard way of installing packages. And the way is simply typing npm install, or there is a shortcut, npm I, they do the same thing, and then the name of the package that you want to install. So the name of my package is not create, sorry, I think it's something else. React router DOM. If you go to Google and you search React router DOM, of course you'll find all the documentation, the first result, about how to use it. I think it's really good. Really good website to understand how it works, blah blah blah. Yeah, so you can have a look to these docs afterwards. So for now, let's just install it. npm I or npm install React router DOM. Then you press enter. So now our system will try to download the package associated to that component.
So there's a couple of packages when it comes to routing.
Is what?
There's a couple of packages. There's a couple of npm packages.
What?
It's two npm packages when it comes to routing.
Two?
Yes.
Why two?
No, they're like available.
Ah.
Is there any reason we choose one or the other?
What's the other one?
React router.
That's a good question. So there are different ways to handle routing on your application. So React router DOM. Does anyone know what the DOM is? Correct. So the DOM is just your HTML, yeah, the structure, body, HTML, div, span. That's the DOM. Yeah. So that routing will be browser driven. Yeah. Have you heard about single page applications? Single page application is a way of coding that we are following here. We'll do that today, where when you click on a link, you don't fully refresh the page. Yeah, you remember in the 90s, every time you click on a link, an internal link, it fully refreshes the page. Yeah? Today, I'm sure you've noticed that for instance, if you got a search bar on top of your web app, you click on a link, you change the content, but the search bar remains with your text. Yeah. So we are not refreshing. We don't provide hard refresh on the browser. We provide soft refresh. This is what we call browser routing. So React Router DOM performs that, browser routing. It's a soft way to do routing. And to me, it's the simplest package to start dealing with routing. Yeah? We don't need to do we don't need to install anything else. Even though the logs are sometimes a bit confusing, sometimes the installation process failed. But even in that case, because you get many things here, so many warnings, so did it work? Yes or no? The important thing is, towards the end of the stack trace, you will get a message with the plus icon, React Router DOM, and then the version. If you get that message at the end, that means, yes, your package got successfully installed. More side effects. You may have noticed a file called package.json. That file will become more and more important over the next weeks. If you click on it, you will see that's the old version of my package on the left-hand side. That's the new version of my package. So you can see that a new dependency has been added to my package. Why this is convenient? Because imagine that you install React Router DOM and tomorrow you change your laptop. How do you remember all the dependencies that you had in your project? In this case, there is only one. But as you can imagine, if I show you Codiri code, we got maybe 85 dependencies. So if I change my laptop, do I have to remember all the dependencies I installed manually one by one? Of course not, because these are listed here. So if you change your laptop, just by typing npm install, essentially all the dependencies listed here will be installed one after the other, yeah? Or in parallel, it doesn't really matter. Okay? So that file will become very important. You'll play with it, don't worry. Task number 18, 19, 20, maybe a couple of weeks time, or even before that, you have to interact with that file. So then what? Well, then we can perform routing. So the process is relatively simple. We need to take some assumptions, however. The first thing is we need to import a few things from React Router DOM. Yeah. Do you remember what these curly braces implied?
When you want to import just some elements.
A particular component, yes. You remember, without them, like import React, there are not curly braces in here. That means React is the default component. You remember export versus export default? Yeah? So React is the default component exported by the React package. If we put the curly braces, that means that package is exporting multiple components. And because of that, I want to pass a comma-separated list of things I want to import. Not ABC, of course, but that's the idea. Yeah? If you think I'm speaking Chinese, please review the workshop we recorded. I think it was last Friday or last Thursday or whatever, last week. Yeah. So, what do we need to import? Few things. The most important one, and we'll do that only once, is something called browser router. Browser router is a special tag that you will display, you see, something like that, to declare your routes. You need to do it just once. Well, not sure if just once, but at least once for sure. So the idea is, let me explain you the problem. If I'm on the home page is slash, I want to display a component called home. If, however, imagine that you're building your portfolio, you know, next week with Esteban, you'll start building your portfolio. You will start preparing yourself for the market. However, if I land on slash projects or about, then you'll display the about component where you talk about yourself. Yeah, I like to take drugs, whatever. Hopefully that's not one of your hobbies, yeah? But you get the point. You talk about yourself a bit, yeah? So, first things first. Let's create the components. Let's create the component, and then we will redirect the user to either the home component or the about component, depending on the URL. Yeah. So let's create the home component first. Obviously, you know that you shouldn't write the components here. Yeah, I'm just leaving them here for testing purposes. But if you remember, back to what we learned on the last week, you should create a new folder, home, with the file home, with the CSS, you know, all these things. Eh? I'm keeping it here just for readability purposes in regards to this example. So home component will return div welcome to my portfolio, for instance. Yeah, and likewise, we'll have the about component that will return I like to dance at Fabric every Saturday. Adam.
Me.
Say again?
You said Adam.
No. Did you see Adam? No. I like. Yeah? Just a stupid example. You know the idea, right? We have two components. So depending on the URL, we will display either the home page or the about section. Okay, so now we start with the interesting part. Inside of the browser router, we will specify the available routes, the available URLs of our web application. And that means we have to import a second component called routes. So once we do that, here, you can specify your available routes. And how we do that is fairly simple. Path. That means whenever the user lands on slash is the home page, then component equals home. See, it's very simple. And likewise, whenever the user lands on slash about, render the about component. That's the way you set up your list of routes. That's what happened. Back to my web application. You cannot see the URL, or maybe you can, but they're on the home page, on slash.
That is excellent.
It is what?
Excellent.
It is excellent. Yes, I agree on that. And powerful, yet simple. Yeah? You see, I'm on my home page, and I display welcome to my portfolio. However, if I go to slash about, what will the web app display? So will we get the welcome to my portfolio? Will we get the home page message?
Yeah.
Why, Ian?
Because we have the path now, the slash, so we display the home component.
So Ian said something very interesting. Look, guys, what happened when you land on slash about? The second bit is perfect, yeah? That's the about page, but why the hell we still got the home component displayed on the about page? The reason is, that's slightly controversial. I'm not very happy with the way router works by default, but the reasoning is, when you go to slash, it's crystal clear that's the website, but when you go to slash about also includes the slash. Yeah, so React is checking all the URLs that match, that include, yeah.
I think quite a lot of like backend languages.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not saying this is something completely weird. I'm saying this is slightly controversial. But obviously, we don't want to do that. Right? I mean, if we are on about page, we don't want to display the home page. So what do? Some of you may be thinking, all right, so change it to slash home, for instance. So now, no problem. If I go to about, because slash about has nothing to do with the slash home, these tokens are completely different, then they are, completely isolated. Slash home page, slash about page. However, that's not really what I want to do. Right? Because for whatever reason, I want to display something on the home page with a slash. So you can add a new attribute called exact. When you add exact, you are telling React, hey, just if the URL is exactly slash, display the home page. And yes, if the URL is exactly /about, display the about page. So now about, no surprises, you see. So now about is just the about content, nothing to do about the home page. And likewise, if I go to the home page, just the home page, nothing to do with the about page. Yeah? Any questions?
Okay, so the example is not necessarily for the part, it's about basically meeting both the requirements, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Be careful, guys. Many developers fail because they write component with capital C. Yeah? Be careful with the case of your attributes. Yeah. So yeah, that's the way routing works. Obviously, it can get way more complicated than that, nested routes and blah blah. But that's the starting point. That's all you need thinking about conflicts and all you need thinking about your portfolio. However, I hope you agree with me. If you build your portfolio, you don't want to change the URL. You're not going to tell employer, if you want to check my about page, then go to about. That's not what you want. In reality, you will have some links. You have a header, a menu, whatever, and when you click on the links, you will redirect the user. So that's what I would like to do now. I would like to create a menu to navigate between one component and the other. As you probably notice, you got a big header, Hello App, and the Hello App header is not affected by routing. It doesn't matter if you're in the home page, if you're on the about page, it's always there. And the reason is, it is outside of the routing handling. That's beautiful. That's beautiful because we can have a dynamic part, like the content of your web application, and then we can have a static part. That applies to the majority of the single page apps today. If I go to Codery, I got a header, you got a header, and the header, the thing is, doesn't change. You can go to training, you can go wherever you want, but the header is static. So I think that's a good combination of dynamic bits with static bits. So let's have a menu component outside of the routing logic. So now let's just create a new function, menu, return, and then div. And how do we display the links? Well, if you know a bit of HTML, you will probably know things like that. That's not really the way React works. If you do that, regardless of whether it works or not, you will have issues in the long term. Let me give you an example. On task number 30 something of conflicts, that's not part of what you need to do to get the blue tick. But if you want to continue working on conflicts, you will see at some point we talk about analytics. So you'll figure out how many customers, how many people is visiting your conflicts, where they come from, country, city, analytics. So at that time, we will like to capture any URL change, because every time the user click on a link, for instance, every time they click on Game of Thrones, we want to capture that action to send a message to Google Analytics. Thanks to that, we'll be able to see which is the most popular TV show, things like that. So at that stage, A-links, classic A tags won't really work. So we need to follow the React way of linking. And the React way of linking is by importing a new component called link. With link, the only thing we need to do is adding the target URL, something like that, to homepage, and then of course you can add some text like home, and likewise about. I can do something like that. 2 links. So now, if I go back to my web application, what is it? You should not use link. Oh, yes. Yes, sorry, that's wrong. Yeah, so I use something wrong, guys. I use, look at the error. Invalid fail. You should not use link outside of router. In other words, all the router tags should be used inside of the browser router. So we probably have to put it something like that, I believe. Let me have a look. Yep, browser router, and then hopefully the links are directly inside of the browser router. There you go. Obviously the UI is a bit horrible, but see, you got two links. So if I click on the home link, welcome to my portfolio. If I click on the about link, yeah, that's the way you can start building a menu.
Would you say it's a good practice then to wrap your, if you go on your ReactJs,
Yes.
to wrap, let's say, your application with router?
Correct.
Just basically you don't have to.
That's correct. That's correct, panel. That's correct. So generally speaking, unless you do more advanced stuff, thinking about conflicts, thinking about your portfolio, you will declare browser router only once on your app.js, only once, and then of course, then you have your own home file, you have your own about file, you will distribute your components, yeah. But you won't have to declare browser router again. It's something you do just once.
Okay, is there any, have you encountered any issues doing that, or
Any issues?
and any problem that you please my fail, for example?
No. Obviously, here we are tackling the basics. There are, actually we should use double quotes, yeah? Remember guys, according to Airbnb, double quotes. So, there are more advanced use cases. So for instance, something you'll have to deal with is dynamic routes. So do you think that Netflix, every time they add a new TV show, they have to add a new route? Do they have a new route for each movie? Clearly not. That wouldn't scale. Yeah, they don't have 3,000 routes, one for each movie. That's completely stupid. That something you will find out is a way to deal with dynamic routes. For instance, things like that. When the URL is /movies/movie ID, it's like a pattern. Every time the URL is /movies/whatever, then that component will be triggered. And then of course we'll be able to analyze what's the movie about and then do whatever we want with it. Something else you will learn on task number 16, I believe, is redirections. What happens if I go to a non-existing URL? For instance, stuff about, I go to projects. Nothing is displayed. At some point, we would like to probably redirect the user somewhere else, show a not found error, whatever. Yeah. So you learn as part of conflicts how to deal with these problems. But apart from that, you can build the majority of the routes just following this coding style. Any questions? Yes, I'll send the snippet on Slack. That's all right. Anything else, guys?
Ricardo, I've noticed that within the browser router you have
Yep.
menu space and then /.
Yep.
Is that space required always, or?
That's a good question. That space, that's a coding style. Let's ask VS Code. If I do right-click format document, it's adding the space. So it looks like, yes, it's a convention. It doesn't hurt, right? If you leave it like that, it will work, no problem at all. But from a readability point of view, I think it's a good practice to add the space. By the way, you know that when that symbol means, that's the same as typing that, yeah? But in this particular case, that feels a bit stupid because we are not planning to add any content inside of the menu. So it's just much easier to, just do that. And that's it. Anything else? No? Thank you.